This is PropertyBT, a podcast of BT correspondents.
Technology is disrupting many sectors, including the bricks and mortar world of real estate. Is technology changing the way buyers search for homes? Can technology lower the cost of property transactions? Welcome to PropertyBT, part of the BT Correspondents podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Yee, Senior Correspondent of the Business Times. Today, technology can be a great enabler when it comes to buying a home. But maybe we are only scratching the surface when it comes to how technology will transform the way we undertake property transactions. My guest today is a Singaporean who works in Silicon Valley, USA, as an engineer for a social media giant by day or having a side hustle as a co-founder of RealSmart.sg. Warmest welcome, Tan Zhi Long.
Thank you so much, Leslie, for having me on.
Zhi Long, you have an enviable and presumably high-paying job working for one of the Magnificent Seven. Yet you had the urge to do something in the proptech space. How did you start RealSmart.sg? What are the features of RealSmart.sg?
Yes, even though I'm not physically in Singapore, my heart and my soul has never left. I've always been very attached to Singapore. My family is still there. I still own property in Singapore. Like personal experience over multiple years of buying and selling own stay as well as investment properties in Singapore, I realized that Singaporeans need a better platform and a better way to buy and sell properties. I remember the first property that I bought was a resale HDB. It was a very nice unit. It was well maintained. And because of that, I had to go through the closed bidding process where, I was competing with other offers and there were multiple buyers. So I won the closed bidding, and that usually means you have overpaid for the property. And so the main source of my information at that time was the agent, as well as whatever that I could find on the listing platform, as well as other data that you can find online. And back then, I was a new person in the market. I didn't even check for comparables, like recent transactions from nearby and surrounding units. And that should be a data point that anchors what is the fair market value and what's the offer price that you should give. So over the years of doing this, I realized that the system is broken in the sense where it's everyone for themselves. Consumers are actually the most unprepared. It is not a level playing field. At the same time, because of the Smart Nation initiative, government actually makes a lot of data available. So one of the features in RealSmart is to make the data understandable and accessible to a lot of users and all the consumers so that they can make decisions based on objective facts instead of hype and emotion, like what I was caught in the closed bidding process. And we also surface non-obvious insights like desirability as well as floor plan analysis that when you ask different agents, they give you different answers. And like, for example, how much annualized gain should you go for, which is considered good, versus putting your money in SPY or index funds and like comparing projects. So these kind of smart decisions that you can make, especially on big ticket items like this, will compound throughout your life. And these could add up to life-changing sums of hundreds of thousands of dollars to millions of dollars. So this drove me to bring back the power to the consumers and walk them through the end-to-end property journey with AI as well as with tech.
What's the feedback so far been from consumers who have used your tools?
So the feedback has been generally positive. I mean, mainly it's because I'm absorbing all the costs and bootstrapping this in terms of server costs as well as all the other miscellaneous costs. We make it free for the user and we absorb everything. Of course, when you create something and you put it out there, you also open yourself to critique. And there are, people who are saying that, hey, this is another agent trying to get leads. But the fact is, I'm just an engineer. I'm just trying to build something that is useful. And I'm starting from there to see if there is adoption and to see if there's enough people that appreciate it. So from our metrics, such as like the 200,000 users that we have, and we do measure stuff like 7-day retention rate, which is close to 80%, which means within 7 days, the user comes back. And other metrics like session time and usage metrics, we can see that actually we have built something that has gained traction without spending a lot of money on ads or paid content.
Zhi Long, I've actually gone into RealSmart.sg. I think your site looks great. There's snazzy features, useful features. Buyers are empowered with data and info. And it's great that you're offering this for free. But we have to be practical. Can make money or not? Zhi Long, have you burned a lot of money developing RealSmart.sg, and what are the challenges you face in scaling it up?
Yes, great question. One of the benefits of having a good job and working my way to a position where I have the luxury to not monetize this for foreseeable future. I can run this for free for a very long time. And bootstrapping this is something that I plan to do. I have been approached by some investors and some people that want to buy into this platform.
Mhm.
But I prefer to stay independent. I want to make my own mistakes and I want to have organic growth. Right? I do not want to sell out so fast and monetize it and dampen any growth that can happen in the next months or the next years. So that is my goal, adoption.
Zhi Long, I think you're right to point out that certainly buying property is a major financial decision. And by empowering consumers, you earlier pointed out it can help make better decisions and maybe translate into gains over one's lifetime of a few $100,000 or more. The other thing about properties is that when you transact, you also incur transaction costs. So lowering transaction costs and making transactions frictionless can help consumers. Today, one can buy and sell shares, paying virtually no commission conveniently through online platforms. Zhi Long, do you see a future dominated by zero-cost property transactions, save for paying stamp duties?
Well, I do not think that the government will ever allow Singapore property market to be speculative like a lot of assets. And so there will be some form of control. If not, it will be unaffordable for a lot of Singaporeans. But technology can definitely eliminate a lot of the manual work. And not just for consumers, but for agents and for developers as well. For consumers, you typically make the request to agents to say, show me listings which are this and that criteria. They will probably go to the website and then they will start filtering for listings. But AI can do that. And the developers would be like, I want to build a marketing team. Show me the best agents. And so we dive into the data, we find not necessarily the agents with the most number of transactions, but agents who care, agents who are consistent, hardworking, and maybe new. So they have the beginner spirit, for example. So all these kind of stuff, AI will be able to satisfy. And it wouldn't change the human aspect that much because you still need somebody to be accountable. And so AI cannot play that role. But in terms of making the process streamlined, we can do that. Regarding removing the need of stamp duty as well as other peripheral fees like lawyer fees and property taxes and stuff, I think it will still be there. It's just that it's one less hassle and you can probably solve the problem in natural language, right? You can actually talk to AI who can help you streamline the process and sort out everything. One example feature in SODA is the mortgage feature. A lot of questions people have is like, hey, this is how much I earn. This is my current situation, my age. How much loan can I take? And if you ask different people, you will get different responses because there's different interest rates and different knowledge sets. But AI will be able to tell you something relatively accurate and it can tell you how much you can afford and make you more prepared for the transaction. And in doing so, it actually helps to filter just the high intent buyers. This will also help agents as well as developers. This is how technology can streamline and help the entire industry. Just one example.
Great. So your platform targets helping consumers, but you can leverage the power of AI to help not just consumers, but also real estate companies and agents, in short, the whole ecosystem. Singapore's labour market is tight. Many sectors are trying to lure more young talent. Yet the property agency business continues to be able to attract new joiners. According to the Council for Estate Agencies, there were 36,816 property agents in Singapore at the start of 2026. With high housing prices, earning commission from getting a slice of a property transaction seems a good way to make a living. Go on social media and you can find young agents who appear to be doing extremely well financially and living very enviable lifestyles. Zhi Long, do you see technology as a friend or foe of property agents?
I am an AI maximalist for somebody who works in tech. And I believe that for a lot of industries out there, including property or medicine or even sports communities, for example, they are not penetrated enough by technology. And we're just scratching the surface in terms of using technology and AI in solving problems. So to answer your question, it is a friend to everyone, right? It is a friend to consumers because it levels the playing field and provides objective information to consumers and arms the consumers with data, which is power for them to make strong decisions. And it will also help property agents, especially agents who adopt technology and AI in the best way. One of the principles that we have I actually wrote it in my Notion document 1 year ago when I first started building Real Smart, is that we don't design products to benefit anyone at the expense of others, which means even if it's lucrative, we do not want anyone to use our data in bad ways, right? To influence a sale that is bad for the consumer. And at the end of the day, we just want everybody to have the same information and the same data. One way that it can help agents, a lot of times users that come to our platform, they are actually already high intent users. And they are people that already are in the market for property. And it is up to the agent to know what they're talking about, really understand the data, influence with what they have, and then make the sale. On top of that, it can also automate a lot of the manual work that realtors actually currently have, which is like manually setting up appointments, viewings, sourcing listings, and so on and so forth. I would say right now, property agents using technology is no longer optional, especially with the new wave of consumers, of millennials as well as Gen Zers who are getting more and more tech savvy. They're not going to wait around for the agents to reply them on information. They're going to go online, they're going to use Soda, and they're going to find out whether that property is a good property or not. They're going to find out stuff that you're not going to tell them. The realtor's role has moved from an information provider to a decision advisor. But AI cannot take accountability for decisions. And so you still need the trust factor over there. So there can be 10x agents, I believe, with AI, if they are not already. And I believe there are agents who are savvy who make use of AI, and I believe they already exist. The human factor is still needed, but really good agents will be boosted. And maybe out of the 35 or 36,000 agents, do you know that actually, I was just looking at some data, 20% of agents actually close like 70% of transactions. So it's actually very skewed, right? The top agents take the lion's share of all the transactions. And with AI, it's probably going to be even more skewed if only the top agents adopt AI. But if there is like equal distribution and democratization of tech, then we could possibly solve for this skewness in the market, unlike what we see today. So that's what I feel about why tech is a friend of property agents.
Still to come, views on proptech disrupting the property agency business. Also comparing the Singapore and San Francisco Bay Area housing markets. That's after the break.
Market Focus Weekly, now hosted by Howie Lim. A sharp weekly deep dive into what's moving markets in Singapore and across the region. With analysts and market insiders to break down the forces shaping the week ahead. New episodes every Friday, powered by the journalism of the Business Times. Find Market Focus Weekly wherever you get your podcasts.
And now, back to PropertyBT, a podcast of BT correspondents.
Welcome back to PropertyBT. Zhi Long, I like it that you're altruistic and want to use tech to help all the different stakeholders in the property ecosystem. At the same time, you're arming consumers with a lot of knowledge and power. In your view, does this mean that at some stage, property agents could become at risk of becoming extinct?
You know, you could say that about almost all jobs, that AI is kind of automating away. The fact is, in the industry, in tech, even if you don't look at realtors, right? Let's say look at engineers. Nowadays, AI can write code. The engineers are becoming amplified, and they're becoming actually more important. Because guess what? AI can make you faster, but you are still the person who is taking accountability for your output. You cannot say that your quality is bad, your work quality is bad because you use AI. So you still own the output. It's just that you can run multiple AI agents at once and you can be many times more productive. So when we look at the job market today, we do see a decreasing trend in some jobs that has to do with analytics. Because if software engineers can do analytics, why do you need to pair them with a data analyst, for example? But you start to see the rise of AI native talent that use AI like an extension of themselves. They make AI a part of their daily process and workflows. And so these people are going to be in demand in the market. And I see it as one of the cycles in tech. Every 5 years, when there is a new disruption that comes in, and this disruption is AI. So we are just starting the new curve of AI native talent. And now there's a rush for people to fill this demand.
You grew up in Singapore. You have family here. You now live in the San Francisco Bay Area. Home prices can be high in Singapore and the Bay Area. Go read my take on hot sales at hot prices at new condo launches in Singapore in the Level Ground in the Business Times. On April 6, I wrote a commentary titled, High per square foot prices of new condos could be increasingly irrelevant to buyers. Many young people everywhere often complain about housing affordability. Zhi Long, what are the similarities and differences between the housing markets in the San Francisco Bay Area versus Singapore?
I mean, before I answer that, I wanted to say that San Francisco, it has slightly different energy from Singapore, especially in the Bay Area. There's a high concentration of engineers. So there is like engineering first culture in a lot of companies, and the market over here is actually geared towards engineers. Zillow is one of the companies that is in the Bay Area. And one of the reasons why I started Real Smart is because I looked at Zillow and I looked at how well built it is, how smooth the UI is, and essentially how transparent they are in showing the past transactions for each unit. And the difference over there between like these two markets is San Francisco has really good tools. US has really good tools, right? With Zillow as well as like Redfin in terms of educating the consumer, where it shows granular data up to when was this unit listed 30 years ago? When was it taken off and how much was it sold for? When was it listed for rental? And so on and so forth. So we have transaction data in Singapore, but the listing platforms do not show when it was listed. And if you show less data to the consumer, it's actually better for people who want to pump transactions, right? But Zillow looks at it from a different point of view. And this is something that inspired me. Overall, there is a lot more focus on landed. When it comes to landed, you look at different things like the width. So because how many cars you want to park, especially in the US where it's very car-centric. So you need a big garage. Versus in Singapore where like condos and apartments take up most of the transactions. And one other difference is that in the Bay Area, more often than not, because of how much demand and how many immigrants there are in the Bay Area, it drives the prices. So a lot of the selling price are way higher than the listing price. Whereas in Singapore, if you offer the listing price, more often than not, you will get it. But more often than not, you're expected to negotiate the listing price down. You know, like personal experience is in the Bay Area when I was buying my first house, prior to that, I gave 12 offers and all of that lost. So the demand for housing in the Bay Area is just another level. In terms of similarities, it is also emotional and competitive. And the sales tactics that are being employed in both markets are exactly the same. Close bidding, as I mentioned before. One thing that's similar is both have very discerning buyers. The average buyer in Singapore is skeptical, is educated, is knowledgeable. And this is the similarities I see between Bay Area and Singapore. And I don't know whether it's a function of a lot of Asians in the Bay Area or not, but there's a commonality in terms of how much people love real estate. I would say we love real estate maybe more than average. People here love property and they love going to viewings and buying a space that they love, whether it's for investment or for own stay.
You keep close tabs on Singapore. You're also a young person. Do you think young people in Singapore have sound reasons to complain over housing affordability?
I don't want to pretend to know the problems of Gen Zers and the young people today because the fact is, driven by data, housing is becoming more unaffordable. And, you know, the younger people in my office, I'm like, hey, you know, do you know anybody who has really bought a house? Or do you know, like, what's the demand for housing? And actually, most of the young people in my team, they don't own homes. So they're actually renting. But they do aspire to own a home. It's just that the barrier to entry is just really, really high. Even though they have higher salaries, but the housing prices have grown even more. And if you look at the Bay Area versus Singapore, US in general doesn't have a lot of cooling measures, if any. If Singapore doesn't have the same kind of cooling measures, wow, it will be completely unaffordable. If we do not have government housing, it will be completely unaffordable. So yes, I do think that it's getting less and less affordable, but there's still a way. I'm positive and I'm optimistic about the future. In terms of quality of life overall, it's not getting worse, arguably a lot better than decades ago. As long as people remain competitive and they strive to be maybe one of the high-performing people in their cohort, I would say they will still be able to afford a good life and afford to achieve their dreams. Even though it's getting less affordable, I believe that with the knowledge and data that we currently have that wasn't available before, we could do better.
Quite philosophical. property is something you need to strive for. Zhi Long, you have shared your unvarnished views and insights into your journey so far in the proptech space. What is your long-term vision for realsmart.sg, and what do you see yourself doing in the proptech space in 10 years?
I've been mainly a buyer and seller, mostly like from an investor in the property market. And currently I am a builder, right? So I build a platform. It can be the default platform or the default decision layer in our property industry, where all the consumers go to before they buy and sell property. I envision that it will become a space that consumers, agents, mortgage brokers, interior designers, people in construction, builders can come together and share domain knowledge to make the industry more transparent. And I do think that if we elevate everyone, it's just benefiting the entire industry overall. This is what I envision for RealSmart, because if we make the market more transparent, it will never become a perfect market, but it can be a market where more informed decisions are made. Imagine if people make more informed decisions and have less regrets, they would visit the market more often and they would actually transact on the market more often. And that's actually good for everyone. And if RealSmart eliminates most, if not all, of the manual work that consumers as well as agents as well as developers have today, hopefully this platform would be able to encourage and enable proper tech penetration and enable everybody in the ecosystem to be better. So that's what I hope will happen in the next 10 years.
What's the single biggest challenge you think in reaching that goal?
So a lot of challenges and barriers that we face in the property market today, it can be made better by the government. For example, the transaction data or data about everything is owned by the government because they are the ones who own the caveats. They are the ones who own the process. I hope the government continues to make it open and free, like what they're doing right now, so that the industry can be fair and can be transparent. One of the biggest barriers is not enough engineering talent or not enough engineering passion is going into such industries. If the engineering effort is not equivalent to the sales and marketing that's being done in this industry, then we will never reach a state where we have tools and we have platforms that democratize things for people. I hope we don't lose the focus of being tech first. I hope we actually grow our tech talents in Singapore and grow the passion building useful things for everyone in this industry.
Zhi Long, your story is an inspiration. Thank you for generously sharing your insights.
Thank you, Leslie.
That's it for PropertyBT this week. Happy property hunting. BT correspondents will be back with an all-new episode on markets, so do subscribe to our channel and check it out. If you have any thoughts or questions about the show, email us at btpodcast@sph.com.sg. This episode was produced by Howie Lim and Chai Pei Chia, together with our editor, Clarissa Montero, and was written and presented by me. I'm Leslie Yee. As always, thank you for listening.
This is a podcast by the Business Times. Find more BT podcasts at businesstimes.com.sg/podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. This podcast is meant to provide general information only. SPH Media accepts no liability for loss arising from any reliance on the podcast or use of third parties' products and services. Please consult professional advisors for independent advice.